The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on a break!
With Nick Eatman, Brian Broaddus, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Monday, September 19th, 2022, season 18, episode number 33. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. Live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Last week, we told you before we ended the show, the Cowboys
were
going to need to show us.
I said the Cowboys
They need to show us. And I think they did. Yesterday, Cowboys get a big win, 2017. Amber's trying to rewrite history. We're not going to allow her to do that. I don't think any of us were confident in that game yesterday, but what we saw was this team could pull together. A lot of guys stepped up. We'll talk about that throughout this hour. Let's start first with what the stories of the game are. Let's go around the table. What do you think is the story of the game? Amber, let's start with you.
The story of the game, that you never know what can actually happen in a football game. So, and I feel stupid because, well, I shouldn't feel stupid because it was given reason based on what we watched week one. But story of the game is that they can actually win games while Dak Prescott is out. That's what I think right now. I think they weren't perfect, but the way they started out the game, the first half, showed us what they can actually do with the help, obviously, of defense. But they can keep it going and hold the fort down while Dak comes back.
Nick.
Micah Parsons, he's the best player on the field. He's maybe the best player in the league, and he absolutely dominated the game. And so I did not pick them to win. But when I had a couple of people asking me, do you think there's a chance, any chance? I just said, well, when you have the best player on the field, you always have a chance. He was the best player. He acted like it, and I think he was the reason why they won the game.
Mike McCarthy set the tone very early in that football game, to show the confidence. They didn't have a really good play on 3rd and 2, and then they go 4th and 2, and I'm thinking, man, he's keeping the offense on the field. Is he trying to get them to get 12 men? Because what happened is you had a lot of crossover. You had punt guys coming on, punt returners coming on for Cincinnati. I'm thinking, okay, he's trying to draw them or he's trying to get him to burn a timeout right here. And then he's going to punt the football. But the confidence he showed in his team, McCarthy said it last week. He said it's about supporting the 48. And the 48 are the guys that all dress. And he showed a lot of confidence in his team by doing that very early. And Cooper Rush delivered. I mean, the pressure in his face to get the ball inside to Noah Brown. Their great route by Noah Brown to get open. It wasn't a safe throw at all. I mean, it was a pretty gutsy throw to make that. So I think the early confidence that he showed in his team and his 48 guys is what really kind of buoyed them along the way to win that football game.
That is a really interesting point. As I went back and thought about the game, there's so many moments, so many plays that you could point out, but that I do think was huge because you think about it, they punt right there, and you're now right back to kind of the same feeling you had last week. The offense just can't get going, and somehow when they do that, now they kind of get some momentum and they start kind of rolling. Before you know it, they end up in the end zone.
Forget the punt. How about an incomplete pass?
Yeah,
true.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
So that just, you're right. I mean, I thought that was the first play I wrote down.
Is that one of your 5?
Sure was.
There we go.
It sure was. I wrote that right early I usually don't write it during the game, but I wrote that one. I had a lot for the Bengals. Like if the Bengals would have won, I had a lot of plays that you could point to, but it just didn't materialize. And because of, like I said, the confidence. He did it in Minnesota last year too. He started out, he struggled a little bit in that game, but then he hits a backup receiver that he's worked well with in Cedric Wilson. Then he kind of gets going, and the next thing you know, he goes and wins the game in the 4th quarter. So I think they realized that you got to get some confidence in him early, and that was a ballsy play. There's no other way to say it. I mean, it really was, and he went for it early on, and
yeah, he's given up 3 points to them immediately if you give them the ball in the 44, and so then you're there was a plan there. It's usually Cincinnati. They decided, hey, yeah, sure, go ahead and take the ball. We'll see. We'll get a stop, and then we're gonna, put you to rest. But if you look at the plays afterwards, +9, +7, +5, +6, +3, and then you got the touchdown. So they got in a little bit of rhythm, and they got some good mix when they were throwing and running the football as well.
Look at Cooper Rush's numbers. He was 19 of 31, a 61% completion percentage, 235 yards passing, 1 touchdown, a 95.5 quarterback rating. Really good day for him.
Good day. I think the numbers are flawed a little bit.
Yeah.
The 61% completion percentage is not great when a lot of them, 3 or 4 of them are like, was that a run or a pass?
I couldn't figure that one out myself.
A lot of safe one, and then of course you got 46 yards on a pass when it was a run by Tony
It was a pitch
Pollard
where he just happened to get ahead
speed.
of him. Yeah,
but that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about that. They were safe. They were safe throws, safe plays. That's how they managed the game and managed his plays. So he didn't mess it up. That's what you want him to do. And she said, can they win a game without Dak? Yeah, if the quarterback goes in and doesn't mess it up and the defense gives help.
I will challenge just a little bit because I do think some of the throws he made to Noah Brown, particularly in that first drive, there were some that came a little later in the game.
Yeah.
There were some plays and some throws that he had to make that he made and made good throws with.
All 5 of the targets that were receptions for Noah Brown, look at them. They were all huge plays.
Yeah.
Every one of them was a huge play. It wasn't like, let's take a random throw here to Noah Brown. Every play he had was either a 3rd down play, a 4th down play, or the touchdown.
Yeah.
So every one of his throws, you talk about using. I'm going to give you a number that I think is even bigger than what Cooper Rush's number was. And that was 199 for Joe Burrow. And then take the sacks into account, it's in the 160s for yards for him. The last couple of weeks, if you look at what defenses have done to 2 of the best quarterbacks, in my opinion, you talk about Tom Brady, you talk about Joe Burrow. And for how the defense has been able to limit, the way they manage Cooper Rush kind of helps you along the way of how you're going to play some defense in this game, too, in my opinion. But the last 2 weeks, I mean, the numbers for these quarterbacks have not been anything that's just going, wow. The defense has done a great job. And Cooper Rush not putting them in bad situations helped him in this football game.
Yeah. And we'll get to that defense a little later. We're going to talk at length, talk about Micah and his day and really what they were able to do defensively overall. I think it was one of the better defensive performances I've seen in quite some time. That all being said, let's go back, though. I do want to talk a little bit more about Cooper Rush. Obviously, they had some success there at the beginning of the game in those first 2 drives. Then they kind of went on a lull where they really weren't getting anything rolling. But one thing I thought that was interesting was it wasn't like it was 3 and out every time. They'd have a drive, and they'd take a little time, and then they would kind of stall out, punt, which is fine in those kinds of games. Probably gives your defense a little extra help. What did you guys see from the standpoint of what they did early to maybe what they did, or maybe what Cincinnati did to them early versus what they did to them a little later, I guess, throughout the middle part of the game?
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to watch a lot of the replays of what Cincinnati did differently. Brian might be better for this one, but I do think the offensive line should be mentioned here on this. I mean, I actually watched a lot of Terrence Steele, and I thought he played much better. I had a text message. I was texting you this morning, and then I had to get on the radio, so I was like, well, I'm going to have to go with it. I was going to see what if you thought Terrence Steele played pretty well, or at least he played better.
I think he played fine. And when you talk about, even there's some things with Tyler Smith that you get away with him every once in a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're not
like
holds, bad feet. I mean, there's things that happen to him during the game that I'm sure that we're all like, it's not things that are killing you when you're getting, you're not getting sacks or tackles for loss or things. Now, the one they did have a tackle for loss. Yep. I don't know. I mean, it was Hendrickson shooting the gap. That's going to happen. Just give them credit on the play. But I felt like at the right side, I think Terrence Steele is actually a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. He's just a better athlete doing that. And so, I mean, there's things that, it's like, man, that Tyler Smith, and you're like, you watch the All-22 and you're like going, oh, okay. You're kind of like, cover your eyes on some stuff. But, he hasn't killed him. But to your point, I think that Terrence Steele played very, very well in this football game.
There were so many times yesterday when we saw Cooper Rush in the pocket, and he didn't have anybody near him. He had time to kind of look downfield and look for what he wanted. And I think that's an improvement, certainly over what we saw the week before. Now, we also knew that. Like, I think the defensive front you get with Cincinnati versus what you get with Tampa Bay, there's a difference there. Yeah. But all that being said, I do think the offensive line kept him relatively clean. Overall, how would you assess Cooper's play? I know you said, Nick, you kind of didn't think the numbers necessarily tell the full story. But what do you think of him overall as a player?
Overall, I thought considering the situation and everything coming into the game like that, I thought he played much better than he did the last time he got a start. Obviously, playing at home is better, but he seemed a lot more comfortable. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about those numbers. I'm just saying there's a couple of plays in there that you got to remember. Some of these passes were actually pretty short, but that's the game plan, and he did it. With him, it's not having bad plays, and only to get sacked once I thought was pretty impressive. Not only for the offensive line, but because of him, because he's not the most mobile guy. He got out of a couple. I thought he looked comfortable. He really did, and I thought he would throw it deep a little bit more than they did. They did not do that much.
I thought one of my concerns was gonna be, or just kind of wait and see type of stuff with what Kellen Moore's game plan was gonna be for him, like kind of readjusting the game and see if he could cater to what works best for a quarterback like Cooper Rush. And they did that. And, I don't really have many complaints because I had a whole different perspective or view or outcome of this game. And they managed to move the ball and win. It wasn't perfect or anything like that. And there were times, that I was bothered by his, like, he didn't have any emotion. Like, when you saw him on the big screen or, like, after a play or so, it was just, like, so emotionless, like there was no energy. I'm like, okay, what is happening? Even when we were getting closer to the end of the game that they weren't able to move the ball very well, I saw him getting out of the field, and he's just like, I'm like, okay, we're going to lose this game. Like, he's not giving me anything like, I'm going to go back in there and fight. He was just like motionless, like nothing. And anyways, they managed to win. Even when he started talking to the media after the game, I'm like, bro, like, give a smile. Like, he wasn't even smiling or anything, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. My point is, he was able to go in, play after play, even without any smiles or emotion on his face. He just got the job done, and he wasn't flustered by anything that, those missed throws or the bad plays that he did in the second half. He just, I was impressed to what he could do, and now I think that, okay, they can manage some wins here.
Yeah, the thing with it's funny. Sometimes you have to be lucky along the way. And the pass on the final drive that Noah Brown caught was not a pass that was going to Noah Brown. That ball was, if you watch the tape, Hendershot's going to run underneath. They're going to drag it, and he's trying to hit Hendershot on the drag, and it's going to be a big play up the sidelines. I mean, it's going to get him in field goal range. Maybe they get out of bounds. Maybe they can run the ball and manipulate things like that. So he's throwing the Hendershot. It gets hit, and it's deflected because his eyes the whole time, you see him looking at him like, I'm going to hit you with this pass. But the ball got deflected. Noah Brown did a great job of, it's just one of those crazy, lucky things. I think that the coaches did a really good job helping him early in the game. I think in the second half they went a little conservative for him. Some of the things. And once that Cincinnati started kind of getting back in the game by kicking the field goals and stuff, then you saw, okay, we need to open this thing back up a little bit more.
Why do you feel that happened? Because when I was watching the game into the second half, I'm like wondering, okay, why does it look like the game strategy has changed when it was working so well at the beginning of the game?
The lead. I felt, to me, when you look at what Kellen Moore was thinking was, I'm up 17-3 at half here. I've moved into field goal range with some big plays to get him in the field goal range right before to get the points. So now he's thinking, listen, my defense is playing well enough.
That's your key.
That, and to Cincinnati's credit, what they did was they're like, listen, Joe Mixon really isn't running the ball, but what did they start doing? They hammered Joe Mixon at you, and then all of a sudden turn it into a physical kind of a game and wore you down. It's like, listen, every time we drop back, these guys are swarming us.
Yep.
And to Dan Quinn's credit, he's putting hybrid defenses out there. I mean, hybrid, he's standing up linebackers who are defensive ends. He's got all this stuff going on, and he's really done a good job of confusing what Cincinnati's doing. But Cincinnati's thinking, like, we're going to get our quarterback killed here in the second half if we don't try and run the ball. That's the biggest adjustment, I think. I don't think it's so much what Cincinnati or what Kellen Moore did, maybe going a little conservative running the ball. But Cincinnati made the point, it's like, listen, we're only down 14 in this game. If we run the ball, we're not going to get our quarterback killed. And I think that plan worked for them to get them back in this football game.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, and not to look too far ahead, but, you know, the Giants are going to do the same thing with Saquon Barkley, because the thing about Micah Parsons is that he rushes so wide on the outside, it does leave some of that middle open, though. But I'll say this, if we're talking about the defense, Micah gets a lot of credit, but if Micah moves around, he can move around and all that because he can. Well, guess what? Dorrance Armstrong obviously can move around too. So can Fowler. So can Sam Williams, I guess. So you got to give credit to Dan Quinn, but the rest of the guys too for saying, you know, where's Micah going to line up? He's lining up here. Oh, guess I'm over here. And they have to adjust as well. I think that offensive line, I mean, if you're the Bengals, you're looking at it. I mean, no offense to the Armstrong and those others, but can you imagine just being that right tackle and then you're like, 11's over there, like, okay, good. Like, you know, like
Leighton even got some action there.
Yeah,
Leighton Vander Esch,
See, that's where, you know, and to Nick's point, the others help 11. 11 helps everybody, but if Wilson doesn't play down in the box, you know, if he's not down there making tackles, Vander Esch, much better game from Barr. Much better game for Barr.
Yeah.
So you had guys that were doing things that allowed Micah to move all over the place, because, you know, like one of the first runs they had in the game was, you know, we'd seen him get gashed on the outside runs in Tampa. They finally got a fill. I mean, Micah's chasing hard inside, and who's right behind him? Wilson. You know, that's usually the curse roll, where curse comes flying down there. Ball spills, there's your safety right there. Sound defense. Mm-hmm. That's what they were playing yesterday. They were playing some really, really sound defense. I think in that 19-play drive, they got wore out a little bit. But the guy who I thought would not make a tackle to save his life made two back-to-back. one on the second down play and one on third down to get them off the field. But the punt was beautiful to pin them down there on defense at the end of that day.
All right, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. Let's talk a little bit about this rushing game. Yesterday, they got a little more of that balance that everybody wanted. We'll see all about what these guys think about that. We'll talk about it when we come right back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, singing, and toasting Miller Lite in 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
This sweet! Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, you unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is. It's a non-fungible token.
Everyone's on something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
Back to the break.
Whether you're watching at home or cheering in the stands, Essilor Lenses let you see every exciting play. Book an appointment at your local Essilor experts. Find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
Welcome back. Second segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. The segment brought to you by Blockchain.com. Let's talk about the rushing game. Listen to these numbers. Zeke had 15 carries for 53 yards, 3.5 average. He had also receiving, he was only 1 catch for 2 targets, -1 yards. Pollard, on the other hand, had 9 carries for 43 yards, a 4.8 average. He caught 4 passes of the 7 targets he received, and he got 55 yards. The key one being the 44-yard reception, 46-yard reception he had that a lot of people thought was a run. But either way, he made the play, and he got there down there to the goal line. Almost got in the end zone.
I thought it was a run.
It's a game of
I did too. I mean, literally
thought it was a run. I'm like, I thought it was kind of not. It didn't. It seemed like a little flip. It wasn't like the pop pass or the little shovel or something like that. It was more like a old school kind of run play to the right side there.
Until we saw the replay, we didn't think it was a pass.
It's a much different conversation today on talk radio and in here. If you're looking at the stat line of 10 carries, 99 yards. If he has a 10 for 99 and Zeke has a 15 for 53, I mean, we're still being talked about, but it's a much different conversation now.
Well, the conversation is, should he be used more?
He should be used exactly like that. I think
exactly like he was used yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you're not an inside guy. You don't. Yeah. He's not an inside player, and you have to do that. If you want to use play action, then you have to run the ball through the middle. He's not an inside runner. He's not that great at pass protection. I praised him for one time because Rush didn't get hit, but he certainly wasn't Stonewall Jackson over there. I mean, he just got in the way enough. But I'm just saying he's not gonna make his living in the middle of the tackles, which Zeke has done for 7 years. It's an inside outside. It's a combination. It doesn't have to be either or. This is a both, and it works when they're working together. It's good.
Brian, last week you said that you thought the opportunity here from the running game standpoint was running to the outside. Were you surprised they didn't do that more yesterday?
Yeah, to me, it's but it's because I felt like the tight ends. I think there was only one time where Schultz hurt you on the edge. But Ferguson's doing a good job. Schultz is getting in the way. Yeah, and then you've got these tackles. I think the strength of Tyler Smith is run blocking. I think the strength of Terrence Steele is actually run blocking. And that to me is when the ball goes inside, especially to the right side, man, Smith does a great job. And we used to see this with Tyron Smith, the ability to cut the backside off. And then all of a sudden it creates that little gap, and you can see whether it was Pollard or Zeke, just they see it and they take that thing in. And maybe initially they didn't have a lot of confidence. They're thinking like, okay, it's Farniok and Smith over on this left side. We're really not going to cut this thing back. It's not going to be done. But these guys are doing a pretty solid job with that and giving them the ability to run. But yeah, I feel like running to the outside is always a good thing for the Cowboys, because I think with Pollard, they could get him to the edge and get him around the corner much quicker than they can Zeke.
But when they're running on the outside, or like for example in certain plays like Cooper Rush just throws him the ball either to Zeke or Pollard, I feel that for some reason sometimes I feel that those kinds of play are a little too slow. Like I see them at other times do it, or even other teams do it, and it's much, much faster. But for some reason, it feels like it's just a few seconds too slow, and then it kills kind of your ability to go for it even further.
Yeah, I was thinking back in my mind of going back. The one play that they ran a counter where they pulled Martin and then Steele they blocked everybody down inside, and they got it. I mean, Smith, Schultz, all those guys sealed everything off inside, and it was like an 11-yard run. And that's the kind of thing I was thinking more, not just like you were saying, just flip the ball or toss the ball or whatever. It's like get linemen out there in front. If you could get everybody walled off inside and then get bodies around, and then Zeke could just follow that up behind off the edge, That's how he can run the ball. That's how they need to run the ball more. The movement, it's a lot easier for those tight ends to block down and seal their guy and then get people around the edge. So,
what do you guys think of Zeke's play yesterday? Because I think there are some mixed feelings about it. I think he did exactly what the Cowboys wanted him to do, which get the tough yards. But what did you guys think overall?
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. It wasn't great. It was not easy to run there. I mean, we knew that going in that the Bengals were probably going to load it up there and get a lot of guys close to the line of scrimmage. And I thought, he did a decent job. It wasn't as good. I mean, he's not the same as Pollard running on the outside. He had a couple of nice runs, but I think for the most part it was just a solid day.
DJ Reader makes things problematic for when you run the ball against Cincinnati. He's the defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. He's really good. He's hard to move. He split a couple of double teams in the game. Farniak and Biotish were trying to block him, and he just overpowers both those guys, and Zeke ends up getting like a 2-3 yard gain because of it. It's similar to what happened with Vita Vea last week. You get that when you deal with a guy that plays that's that big inside, and especially if Zeke's not going to run the ball wide. If it's going to be inside running, then it's about securing some guys like Vita Vea and DJ Reader and guys like that. And that was a little bit of a struggle for them yesterday. And that's, I think, affected the way that Zeke was carrying the football.
But you know what? Something that caught my attention, too, is – yeah, Zeke could have done more, but when I thought about it, just watching the game, it was impressive the fact that they were able to do what they did, but without the use of your main guys. Like, your main guys weren't the ones making the plays. And by that, I mean Ezekiel Elliott, he wasn't making those flashy plays. Dalton Schultz wasn't the one making those flashy plays either. Neither was CeeDee Lamb. So you really managed to move the ball, move the chains with guys that – although they're kind of your starters right now, but I consider kind of your backup guys down the line.
You won the game with a practice squad quarterback.
Exactly.
And a practice squad kicker.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I think they're on the team now.
Yeah. You talk about the wide receivers. The stat lines for them were impressive, I think. Noah Brown was 5 of 5. 5 targets, 5 catches, 91 yards, 18.2 average. So they were getting the ball downfield to him, and he was making something happen when he get the ball. He did have the touchdown as well. CeeDee Lamb had 7 catches on 11 targets, 75 yards, a 10.7 average. My question is, last week there was a lot of talk about were the receivers getting open? Was Dak just doing a bad job getting them the ball? Was he not finding them? Was there enough separation? What do you guys see this week that may have been different with regards to how the receivers were playing between how they played for Rush this week and how they played for Dak last week?
I mean, that's not easy to answer that one. I mean, I do think that they got open a little bit better in this game. I think, like Brian said last week, I mean, they were open at times. I think the biggest difference, though, honestly, was the offensive line. I think the offensive line created a better pocket for Cooper Rush than what Dak had this week. I mean, I thought Cincinnati would be a little bit better up front than they were, but they weren't. I mean, it was the offensive line gave him more time, and I think that some of the play calls were a lot, I don't know if simplified is the right word, but it just seemed like more direct. And this is what we're trying to do. We're going to get the ball to CD right here. We're going to get the ball to Noah Brown, and it was just throws that are in Cooper Rush's wheelhouse.
Yeah, the biggest difference, and it might be about CD's ability to win because they had a slant that they hit for a big play. Mm-hmm. And the ball was in front of him on the slant. And that's what we've been kind of thinking about here. Like, we've seen Dak double hitch, and is he double hitching because he's not sure that CD is released and is to the point? And Dak doesn't want to throw interceptions. Yeah. Nobody wants to throw interceptions, but Dak's looking at like release, and he's trying to, and whereas Cooper Rush is like, what do I got to lose? I'm throwing this ball. And then,
it's
and
like step, bam.
Sometimes you wonder CD will go step, and then you're like, and then Dak's pulling it. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's step, and then inside, and now the ball's in front of him. Mm-hmm. Yesterday was a really good example of what happens when you throw the ball in front of receivers and you let them go get it. Like the free play that Noah Brown caught was just, it's like free play, and Noah Brown up the sideline, throw the ball up. It's a big play. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when you throw the ball, now is it all on Dak? No, because just what we're talking about. What's CeeDee Lamb doing coming off the ball? Is he taking that extra step to try and free himself and not? And Dak's like, you got to be inside, bro. I can't hold this thing any longer. And I think that's a problem for both the quarterback and then the wide receiver in regard to them trying to throw those inside breaking routes.
Yeah, the thing that came to me immediately, and not to copy Nick's, but as soon as you said that, I just thought of the offensive line and what they were able to do for Cooper Rush. Because the game just, even when they started, it just didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like, sorry, but it felt like they had extra seconds to get where they needed to go. Like the defense from the Bengals weren't creating that kind of like anxiety for you, that keeping you on your toes. Like, oh no, they were able to kind of. So
There was a couple of times where Rush really hung in there. I mean, where like it's late leakage, and then all of a sudden it's like ball out, and he's hit, but he stood there. I mean, to his credit, he's like, I've got to make this throw, and he was able to pull it off.
Based on kind of your analysis, if you were to compare the two defenses from week 1, week 2, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, how much was it on the defense versus how much was it really on what Kellen's Moore offense was able to do?
I think the big difference there, too, is you look at Cincinnati's linebackers. I mean, the linebackers are just not difference makers like what the Bucs have. And
I don't think most teams have what the Bucs have at linebacker.
Dallas does, I think, and that's it. If you call him a linebacker, if you don't call him a linebacker, then no. But I'm just saying that's the center of everything. That's where really great defenses are. They can rush, they can be in coverage, and all that. And I think that's the biggest difference is that Tampa had linebackers that are in coverage back there. I mean, Devin White and those guys making plays, David and all that. And I think that was just a big difference of the defense. I mean, their front was okay, but Hendrickson really wasn't a huge.
He wasn't a factor.
No.
He wasn't a factor. The only time he really was a factor was on that one run where he just slanted inside and Tyler Smith just couldn't cut him off, and it looked bad because Biotis was trying to get him, and it almost looked like that Biotis jacked up the play. But he was just trying to clean up the mess of the uncertainty of Tyler. It was just a great call by Cincinnati. They called the right defense into the right play. Mm-hmm. The blocking, but the linebackers are right. I'll tell you what was really positive for me yesterday when you start to talk about the receivers and offense. And I think Tampa's got good safeties. I think the Bengals have good safeties too. And Noah Brown's touchdown was run against Jesse Bates, who's on the franchise tag for them. Mm-hmm. He's one of their better defensive players. I mean, that for him to separate and lose him in the back of the end zone, I think that's a great sign for your guys and how they play from one week to the next.
What I liked about Cooper Rush, particularly on that touchdown, is we said, could this be check down Charlie? Could this be a guy that's just going to? There were times where he was rolled out and he had it underneath route and he took it to that second level, including the touchdown throw there. So he's not afraid. He's not afraid to let it rip.
I'll tell you what's funny. You say that because remember Dak's interception on the boot last week with all the clutter and all that. Cooper Rush got the same kind of look. He could have thrown it. What did he do? He didn't throw it. He ran. He ran for like 3 yards. He could have made a throw underneath, and it would have been probably 5 yards. Whereas Dak took the shot down the field, Cooper Rush is like, I'm not throwing that ball into all that clutter down there. He just took off running and got the 3 yards and fought for another day.
He talked about some of the Tyler Smith blocks getting away with something. Oh. If you go back and look at the touchdown run by Pollard, the 1 yard run, Ferguson, no, 87. Who's our Jake Ferguson? Yeah. False start. They didn't call it. Like he hit like that. They didn't call it. And one of the guys is like points, and then they snap the ball, and it's a touchdown and all that. But I mean, I'm really shocked that they didn't call that. That would have been first and goal from the 6. Yeah, probably still get in. But I thought overall Ferguson played pretty well.
Yeah,
and we'll see how Dalton Schultz's injury looks like. Not really sure where we stand there with that, but Ferguson's probably going to have to play a lot.
He came back in the game, but then took himself
just
back
for
out.
A play.
Took himself right back out. So
didn't look good.
We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we'll talk about the parts of the team that probably made the biggest difference yesterday, the defense and definitely the special teams. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's DallasCowboys.com radio.
Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is. It's a non-fungible token.
Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Brace yourself for an existential question. Has your butt been having enough fun lately? Have you been treating it well? Has it been going places? If not, then it's about time you start using SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the best way to get your butt tickets to live events. Just ask the thousands of other butts who have rated it the #1 ticketing app. So what are you waiting for? Download the app now or visit SeatGeek.com to get tickets to sports, concerts, and live events and make your butt happy. SeatGeek. Get your seat in a seat.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, sinking, and toasting Miller Lite in 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Back to the break.
Join former NFL players for our first game day minicamp presented by Invisalign. Drop the kids off at the Ford Center October 2nd, 11:30 to 3:30 while you watch the Cowboys take on Washington Commanders. From your favorite restaurant in the Star District, the kids will be on the field with those former NFL players. Register your kid for a camp at DallasCowboys.com/academy.
Welcome back. Final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Again, we are presented by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk defense. Here's how I'm going to set it up. Micah, go.
Best player on the field. Lions got to eat.
Yeah.
Lions got to eat.
I thought they had a really, really good plan in this one.
Yeah.
They knew that Cincinnati, you hold Jamar Chase to 5 catches in the game, Joe Burrow under 200 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Playing some defense out there. You're talking
6
about
sacks.
Yeah, sacks.
9 quarterback hits.
The running game. The running game didn't really get going. I mentioned it. I think that Cincinnati figured out we better run the ball or we're going to get our quarterback killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that Dan Quinn had a really, really good plan for this one. And as far as, guys like Barr, Wilson, Van Der Esch, those guys, the linebacker, those guys help the way they play. I mean, they kind of complement some of the things that are going on. It allows you to sit there. Fowler, we didn't say Fowler's name once in Tampa. Yesterday, he was a factor in that football game. It just goes back to the confidence that you have in Ambar. You were talking about it earlier. You go, when we started in training camp, what's the confidence you have in the defense? Dan Quinn. What's the confidence you have in the offense? I'm really not sure what Kellen Moore is going to do this year. And Dan Quinn, you don't worry about that. He knew that Cincinnati was bad across the 5. He knew it. And he's like, I'm not going to let you get away with it. So many times in the past, we've seen Cowboy defensive coordinators, the Giants come to mind on a Sunday night game or something like that, where all 5 of their linemen were out. And you're thinking, here we go. They're going to get after Eli Manning in this game. Eli Manning didn't even get touched, no pressures, no numbers for any of these guys. This guy won't let you have bad offensive players out there and not take advantage of you. Mm-hmm. He will find your bad players, and he will attack those bad players.
It's definitely 100%. And I think that I just keep thinking back to what Tom Brady wrote on his wristband of playing the Ravens about find 20 before every snap. Ed Reed. I just can't imagine that you don't do the same thing with Parsons. I mean, we're doing it from the press box. I want to watch him every snap. I want to see where he is. I can't imagine if you're Joe Burrow, you don't do that. It's just such a dynamic weapon to be him to just find the weak link and go and rush and do that. I mean, it's amazing.
There's time.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say there are times where even from the press box, I mean, you have a bird's eye view, so you see everything. So I can imagine, and there are times where I'm watching the games, and all of a sudden, obviously, I'm between my computer, and then I look up or whatever, and then I'm like, whoa, where did he come from? Like Micah? I'm like, how did he get there? So I can imagine being on the field and actually having to deal with that. And you were talking about the run defense. That's the one area that I think the Cowboys have struggled with, and we've kind of talked about it. Even going back to last year, that's the one thing that if they could be better in stopping the run, they would be a full, complete defense all around. But this is the one game that they showed they did that, and we can keep talking about Micah Parsons, putting him on graphics, putting him on highlights and everything, but it's so amazing what all the other players are doing as well that
he
you
lifts
mentioned
their games.
because they allowed him to be the star. So it's like we got to give credit to all those other guys as well.
Yeah, you talk about, I mentioned Dan Quinn, and the fact that he got Tom Brady to throw an interception in that game by alignment of Wilson and lining him in the A gap and then peeling out of there and getting an interception. Yesterday, they have a setup where they let Micah Parsons rush free on a third down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how he F's up your scheme.
Because he had those two linebackers sitting in the
A gaps. Because all of a sudden they're thinking we've got to squeeze and let the furthest guy from the ball free. Who's the furthest guy from the ball? Micah Parsons. I mean,
that's
what
what somebody says, including the quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, let's scratch that, scrap that. Like somebody get 11.
Hey, by the way, Joe, number 11 is going to be a free rusher on this one. And then Joe's like, well,
like,
what?
no.
And he's like, snap. And now he's trying to throw the ball to Chase, and it's like, it's 8 miles over his head. It's because he schemes up 11 in order to have success. Double A blitz, run them out of there, bring them. Whatever you do, you affect the way the scheme works. Mm-hmm. And to free up 11 where nobody blocks him,
there was a play in the press box. We were in the press box. There was a play where Burrow went back to pass. And he's back. He was there. He's pumped, waited, threw it to the sidelines, and and it was incomplete. And Derek was like, "Man, he had a lot of time on that play." I was like, "Yeah, Micah's out of game." And he was out of the game. Like, oh, okay. And now he's in the game. It's like, he has to have a rest? I mean, like, that's the one.
I don't ever want him off the field.
No, and
he has to come off sometimes, but I don't want him off the field.
The same thing was talked about with DeMarcus Ware. Same thing. We're like, how do you ever rest him? And it's hard to, but it's working now. He's banged up a little bit right now. He does have a couple of injuries he's dealing with, and he was affected in that second fourth quarter. You could tell he was affected a little bit. I think he's got a knee and a toe injury, but he got an extra day. Got 8 days now to get ready for Daniel Jones.
When you think about, though, just the number of guys, think about this: Fowler, Armstrong, Tank, Sam Williams, Anthony Barr, LVE, Micah, Donovan Wilson, Trayvon Diggs, all had what I would call big plays in the game yesterday. It was not just a one-man type thing. And I'm a big believer in, I know, Amber, you said those guys allow him to kind of be the star. I actually think of it a little bit on the flip side, and I look at it as what Micah brings to a defense is because he's so disruptive, there creates these opportunities for other guys. If you can, we saw the sack that LVE got was all about Micah getting there, flushing the quarterback. LVE fills, right?
He gets so much attention.
Yeah, he gets so much attention, and so I really believe that this is what you should be meaning when you say a player that elevates everybody else's play. It's because he's so much of a great player. He's so disruptive that everybody else gets an opportunity to do things that if they can just beat their guy, then I don't have one guy to beat. If they can beat their guy, they can create, they can make the big play. So I think he just changes a defense.
It's a win-win right now.
Yeah.
Either you focus on him and then you let other guys go at it, or you take out other guys and he's going to destroy you.
Yeah, I know it's probably going to get me in trouble for saying this, but no offense to Tank, But, this is what we thought that when Tank was having that success, like, oh, he's going to help others. He's going to rush, and it's going to help others. Tank played really well yesterday. I mean, some super hustle plays that he was making, that you don't – when you watch the All-22, you're going, oh, okay, well, there's 90 again. There's 90. It's just not about the numbers with him. It's not about the sacks. But there was a time where we thought, man, Tank is going to elevate everybody's game. He's going to really it's like – number 11 is elevating everybody's game right now the way he's playing.
Yeah. So real quick before we end the show, I do have to talk about the special teamers because I think all three of them had moments yesterday that really factored into this win. You look at the kicker, Brett Maher. He has 2 field goals that he kicks, including the game winner. He now is 3 of 3 for the season. All 3 of his kicks are 50-plus, and he's made all 3. That's impressive. Brian Anger yesterday, he pinned Cincinnati there at the end of the game, pins them back at the 8 with 2:13 left in a tied ball game. To me, that was one of the plays of the game. And then you had Kevontae Turpin, who for the first real time he's getting some opportunities here with a little bit of room. He had 2 punt returns for 34 yards. He did have the 20-yard return to the Cincinnati 49. That was with 51 seconds left in the first half. That led to the field goal to put him up 17-14. So look at special teams right now. Special teams is performing at a really high level yesterday, and that made a big difference.
I'll tell you what, and you talk about Maher, they made the right decision there. Usually, how many times we've been so critical of this front office for like just sitting there and hoping and thinking that everything's going to be all right with the kicking situation. They saw it in Oxnard. We were all watching it every day. Every time that Garibay kicked, looked like they was throwing more dirt on him. And then, and then Hiralahu, they're like, his leg's not strong enough. Yeah, he's accurate, but they went and got Maher because they know he can make 50-yard field goals. It was close, though. Man, that was a close one. Oof. I mean, it was close, but it was through, and that's what. And then you look at what do they do in the office during training camp? They go get Turpin. We saw what Turpin did against the Chargers, but that 14-yard return that he got, that was a 63-yard punt that he fielded right there at the Dallas 21 and brought it back 14 yards.
And it probably should have been 14. It was just his speed that got him to 14.
It's crazy to think that he basically saved Dallas a first down along the way. That for them to have to save him that distance. He could have caught that ball, got trapped, something bad happened, and now Dallas is trying to drive the ball down the field. Yeah. No, he did a great job of getting it back to the Dallas 35, and that set him up for the rest of the drive.
It's an absolute domino effect because it goes back to the punt. And if you punt, think about it. If you punt the ball at the 14-yard line, okay, well, Burrow's going to be standing at the 7 or 8 when he drops back. But if you punt it at the 8 and he wants to throw the ball, he's standing around his goal line.
Yep.
It's just human nature to not be as aggressive. And so they're not aggressive. Diggs makes a couple of great tackles there. So now your punter's standing there in his end zone. Of course he's going to punt it as far as he can. He has no choice but to outkick the coverage because he's trying to get it out that way, and that's what Turpin gets to do. It's just a domino effect. It all leads back to that punt, though, by Anger, and then the stop, and then it just leads to it.
Complimentary football.
Good team
that's
football.
Exactly it. It was team football yesterday.
Yeah.
You look across the board. There were so many guys that made so many plays. It was not just relying on the quarterback being great. Everybody had their part. Everybody had their moment. That's how the Cowboys are going to have to win, especially while they have Dak out. But even when he comes back, everybody's got to keep that same level of intensity and that same level of performance in order for them to be successful.
I just love the fact that you played Brady and you played Burrow, and you got some other ones coming up here later, but now it's about to be Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz and Stafford and Hurts. I'm trying to say those guys aren't as good as the two you just played.
All right,
and so that's what I'm trying to say.
Just say it.
They're not. I mean, but that doesn't mean they're not athletic. They can hurt you in different ways. But if you
got different problems this week. It's not going to be the quarterback as much as it may have been these last weeks.
Everybody thought you were going to be 1-1 at this point, right?
I think most people probably thought that.
When you do that silly game we play every year, win, loss, loss, win, loss. You know, play that game.
You said if you came out of the first 2 weeks 1-1, you felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the fact
we're making justification.
I love the fact that 3 years in a row the Cowboys have won in week 2. All of it with a game-winning field goal and a walk-off. That's McCarthy's first win of the season. Every time has been a walk-off field goal at the buzzer.
So. We'll take it.
Okay.
That's what the Cowboys needed. All right. We appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. For Nick Eben, Brian Broaddus, Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?